Hello everyone and welcome to my first Type 5s and 10s video. This series is meant to be a companion to the main series, Death Comedy Gems. The goal is to cover anything that either didn't make it into the main video or that I wanted to expand upon here. So let's jump right into this video's topic, Paul Mooney and how his comedy was FUBU before FUBU.
No, you can have it. They made a mistake. They made a mistake because I don't drink. I'm on the wagon. I don't drink, so that's a mistake. Yeah, that's what they like to do. Get niggas drunk so they can sell them. I live in New York. What am I doing in Mississippi? You got drunk, nigga.
Paul Mooney wasn't just a black man. Paul Mooney epitomizes and embodies blackness for his generation. Will Smith is a black man. Don Cheadle is a black man. James Earl Jones was a black man. Mooney is up there with the likes of James Brown, Charlie Murphy, Stevie Wonder, the Isley Brothers. You get the point. This raw authenticity was all over his comedy. Paul catered his comedy to the black experience every single time and on every single stage. He had no Vegas material. Catering to a black crowd goes beyond what the industry negatively labels Def Jam material. For those that don't know, Def Comedy Jam, which is also where I get the name for the main series, was a stand-up series on HBO created by Russell Simmons. I wonder when he's coming back from Bali, by the way. That aired throughout most of the 90s and mostly featured black comics who spoke on subjects pertinent to the black community. A common joke setup is a basic comparison. The good old black people walk like this, white people walk like that. Not every comic did this type of material, but enough did it to make it a trope. It kind of grew to be hackneyed after a while, but those comics who could find a way to engineer themselves to the larger black audience but still keep things fresh really shone through in the end. One of the most popular, of course, is Bernie Mac's set in 1992, where he stands his ground against a notoriously brutal New York crowd at the Apollo Theater. More on this in a minute. There are ways to be yourself, to be black, and to avoid blatant pandering on stage, and I think this routine offered the blueprint. For Paul, it's not just the material he chose, but his delivery that made his comedy feel real to the black comedy lovers. There is a certainty in his voice, similar to that of a black barber who knows in his soul that LeBron is better than Jordan. There is a detached paternalism that comes from black men that he speaks with. Kind of like, go ahead and do that dumb shit if you want to, but I told you better. I've mentioned this version of crowd work before, but a part I'm not sure I emphasized enough was how personal he got. If you were in the front row, he made eye contact with you. He didn't just ask questions that were setups to jokes. There was a certain concern in his face, like he was talking to his own kids. There is a certain power that good black elders have, where even if what they say isn't necessarily right or accurate, you can tell it comes from a place of concern, and to be able to have those little moments of sincerity mixed in between jokes shows an appreciation for the intended audience. Since his return to the big stage in 2017, Chappelle has tried to add this to his routine, and it's something that only enough time spent in a black body can give you. It's like marinating brown stew chicken the night before. It just hits you right in the soul when you bite into it. That's not just an underrated aspect of good comedians, but also an underrated requirement of black crowds. Black comedy patrons often get a bad rap for being tough rooms, and some people even take the slander a little further and say that black crowds prefer lowbrow humor or they don't understand complex jokes. Not only is this notion obviously racist, but it ignores the truth of the matter. Black comedy patrons do not have patience for some of the unfunny bullshit that comics try to pass off as humor. It's not an issue of class and culture, it's an issue of economics. Black crowds don't have the time or the money for you to faff about on stage. They came here to laugh, and they don't mind being asked to think, but they demand payoff for setups. And when it comes to racist jokes, they can be funny, but for a black audience, they had better be fucking funny. Another important note is the importance of regions. Paul eventually felt more at home in the New York comedy scene than his home state of California. George Carlin also noted the important difference between the coasts. There is a vibrance and raw fervor in a New York crowd. It's been said often that New Yorkers are just as happy booing you off the stage as they are cheering and laughing with you. And I would argue that sentiment extends to other major cities up and down the I-95 corridor like DC, Philly, Boston, parts of Jersey, etc. California is a different animal. From what I understand, you basically have to fight to get people to give a fuck. You don't get people ready to burn you at the stake like back east, but they also seem to not care as much in general. It's like they would rather be somewhere else. I don't have first-hand experience, so I can only go off what the experts say. I'm from the South, and I live on the East Coast now, but the few comedians I've done a deep dive into so far all seem to get frustrated at some point or another with the blasé attitude of LA. Saying all this to say, Paul's thoughts often reflected the thoughts of the community, the good and the bad. To complain about the topics and opinions expressed in his comedy is to complain about different sections of Black America. If you're truly offended as a Black person, go out into the world and fix these issues to the best of your ability. Don't just complain about it online. Paul was misogynistic. I can't really dispute that. However, many of us have very misogynistic views that are just beneath the surface within the Black community. And to fix it, you have to first accept it. But laughter is involuntary, and it's the job of a comedian to pull the humor out from absurd and obscene for all the people to enjoy. By the way, if you're not Black and Paul's words offend you, just mind your business. Mooney's loyalty to us was punished by not getting very many mainstream roles. But when the Wayans brothers called, he tended to answer. I don't necessarily agree with everything that the Wayans do in terms of their artistic expression, but they stayed loyal to him in return. Dave also stayed loyal to him, and I think that's because at the end of the day, he was funny, he returned the favor of loyalty, and his presence gave credence to a genuine, multi-generational Black experience. Until very recently, Black comedians loved the good passing of the torch, like what Red Fox did for Richard Pryor, what Pryor did for Eddie Murphy, and what Eddie kind of did for Chris Rock and Martin Lawrence to a degree, and so on. Secession is critical, especially in the rat race that the Black comedy scene can be behind closed doors, and while some have run to Vlad TV over the past decade to talk about the past generations dropping the ball. One of these days I'll get around to talking more about the modern comedy scene, but today is not that day. Back to Mooney. I was very critical of his show, Judge Mooney. It doesn't fit my taste, but it very much was, and still kind of is, a representation of a section of the Black American experience. Goes back to the point I made in the main video. Whether you're trying to look perfect and pristine, or rugged and real, both can be considered objectively positive, negative, problematic, the ideal, whatever in a certain light. When he talks about having his integrity and dignity in that one scene in Bamboozled, he doesn't mean that he's not above doing something goofy or silly as a joke. He means that he's not going to let himself be sold to the highest bidder, and he's not going to let his performances be used against the Black community. Granted, they're going to try to make this happen regardless of what he says or does, but as long as he's doing his best to not contribute, that's a worthwhile goal to strive for, and it's better than just being a token or a nocturnal cat with black eye mask, if you follow me. To start wrapping up, I just wanted to make this video to impress upon how valuable Mooney was and still is to the Black people in the stands and on the stage. There aren't many people willing to pass up a check on principle these days, and you see no better example of that than the Riyadh Comedy Festival. By the time I get this video out, it will either have just passed or be wrapping up. I'm not sure if anyone in traditional media has been loud enough about how bad of a look this is considering the politics, social climate, and human rights violations of Saudi Arabia, but that doesn't really shock me because those folks are just trying to keep whatever pennies we throw at proper news media these days. So yeah, not really shocked. The stage is powerful, and I find it so disingenuous and aggravating when certain comedians try to act like it's not. I will always hate Jerry Seinfeld, and one of the main reasons is because he does his damnedest to keep pushing the narrative that nothing he does is serious or can be truly emotionally resonant, while millions of people listen to what he has to say and he rakes in a mountain of money. Like, you can't have it both ways. You can't say that what you do isn't valuable and then you put a price tag on it. But then whenever there's social ramifications for some of your thoughts and opinions in your material, then all of a sudden you want to hide behind, oh, it's just jokes. No. Howie Mandel is another guy who likes to pretend that he's just a normal guy with a normal job while he publicly supports one side in the ongoing Middle East conflict. I wasn't able to find a way to fit this into the main video, but Mandel was also the guy that left Paul Mooney disgusted with how he would cross the picket line all the time and do sets when the Comedy Store was being boycotted in '79. Many comics pretend they're these weak insignificant little specks in the entertainment industry, but then they move their weight around a little bit, and when slighted or when they need a quick buck, not to help out their fellow comic or fellow man, but to reach into someone else's pocket or push a personal or harmful agenda. Their only community is in their mind and their bank account. But not Paul. Paul was ours. He rejected the power that he knew he could have easily gained by writing more universal material or by debasing himself, and chose to be himself and belong to Black America. They won't make statues of Paul. He'll never have a star on the Walk of Fame like his brother in comedy, Richard Pryor. They won't write songs about him or film a biopic dedicated to his life. But if you're a comedy lover, you've heard him. You maybe didn't know it was him or his voice or his delivery, but you've seen his set in the greats of the modern Black media landscape. The funniest joke Ari Spears ever told was when he did a Paul Mooney impression. Also, that ass whipping that he took on Corey Holcomb's show. And that's all from me today. I hope you enjoyed this shorter video. I'm still working on the script for the George Carlin video and wanted to get this out in the meantime. Hopefully it will be uploaded by either the end of October or early November before basketball starts properly. If you like the video, do all the YouTube things that people say at the end. You know what it is by now. This app has been around for 20 years and I feel old. I looked up a Bernie Mac clip while writing this and saw that shit was like 16 years ago. Time flies. Anyways, this has been Moth with Type 5s and 10s. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.